It's finally here. Well, sort of. The Saunders Metacycle is slowly rolling out to early reservation holders, and that means it's time to get my hands on one and see if it lives up to the hype.
Hey everyone, Micah here with Electrek, and today I'm coming to you from LA, where I am taking my first ever test ride on the Saunders Metacycle electric motorcycle. This day has been a long time coming, and I know a lot of you have wanted to see this test ride as well. So why don't you come along with us while we take it for a spin.
Big thanks to Jeremy from Saunders, who not only let me borrow a bike for a couple hours for a morning cruise through LA, but also volunteered to play camera car for me. Now this is more of a first ride than a full review, since I didn't have too long with the Metacycle, but in just a couple hours I already learned a lot about the bike that I want to share with you. First, some background. Now Saunders is mostly known as an electric bicycle company, but they debuted this light electric motorcycle back at the start of 2021, offering it as an 80 mile an hour and 80 mile range e-moto for $5,000, which was industry shattering at the time. The project took a while to come to fruition, overrunning its initial timeline and surprising a lot of early reservation holders with a number of changes to the design and specs along the way. I can only tell you about the bike that popped out at the end, the one I rode, not the one that was originally promised, so keep that in mind. So here's how the Metacycle looks today. We've got a 14.5 kilowatt peak rated hub motor on back, and in the center we've got a 4,000 watt hour battery. It was originally going to be a quick release setup, kind of like on an electric bicycle, where you just unlock it, pop it off, and carry it inside to charge, but that didn't quite pan out since now it takes a couple tools and a couple minutes to remove. Most people will probably charge it on the bike anyways though, but it's a shame to see that the feature disappeared. Even so, there's still some cool innovation on this bike, like a glove box with a wireless charger for your phone. I did notice that as I rode around, if I hit any big bumps, then sometimes the phone would kind of jump around and stop and start charging, but for the most part it worked quite well. It's also nice to have the phone so easily accessible for times you'd want to grab it real quick, like when a Prius that's turned into a chopped pickup truck rolls up next to you and you gotta snap a few pictures. LA, you never disappoint. Anyway, let's talk about the ride here. Now the Metacycle isn't super sporty or anything, but it's got enough power to beat cars when the light turns green, which is exactly what I want in a commuter motorcycle. The top speed was originally advertised as 80 miles per hour, and that's still possible, but it's not the full story. The bike normally cruises at closer to 60 to 70 miles an hour max speed, and then you can hit the turbo button to briefly put it in sport mode and unlock that extra 10 to 20 miles an hour to get it up to 80. But it only lasts for a brief moment, and then there's a cooldown period before you can do it again. That's not what I was expecting when they said top speed of 80, and so that's a bit disappointing. Even so, as a commuter motorcycle, that still seems like it's gonna be fine for everyday riding. Sure, you can take this bike on the highway, but it's not really optimized for it. With just a 4,000 watt hour battery, fast riding is going to drain the pack quickly, and so it's really meant as an around the town and easy cruising bike, not a long highway rides or touring bike. On my trip here, I got an extrapolated range of around 40 miles, but that was with plenty of highway riding and making frequent use of that turbo button. Mixed riding with more city stuff is likely to get you closer to 60 miles. I don't think many people will see 80 miles of range unless you're actually sticking to city speeds of like 30 miles an hour, so don't count on that 80 mile number if you're doing real world commuting. In terms of the ride itself, it actually feels quite good. I was amazed that it was a much more comfortable bike than I expected, both in terms of the seat and the riding position. The seat is more padded than it looks, and I don't exactly have an American-sized tuchus, so maybe I'm not the best one to report on its comfort. Heavier riders might have a different experience, but I feel like I can sit on it for an hour straight without any discomfort. It's also a decently upright ride, which I also enjoy. You're not in a super sporty tuck, you're in a comfortable, almost moped-style e-bike position, which, if anything, the bike feels kind of like an upgrade to an electric bicycle. The controls are as easy as a scooter, and if anything, it feels like a fairly peppy scooter-type performance, except in a motorcycle package. It's easy to ride and easy to handle, even if it now weighs closer to 330 pounds instead of the original 200 pounds that Saunders promised at the beginning. But there's no way it feels like a 300-something pound bike, perhaps because the weight is just so low in that battery and hub motor. It feels much lighter, and it also feels like it'd be a great first motorcycle for someone who enjoys electric bicycles but wants to start getting into higher speeds and higher power. I mean, that's exactly how I started. I got into fast electric bicycles back in 2010, and by the time I was doing 35 miles an hour or so on something with plastic bicycle pedals, I realized maybe it was time to upgrade, and that led me into progressively more powerful electric motorcycles. For someone following the same path, starting with electric bikes and then now wanting to commute by electric motorcycle, small and lightweight e-motos like these are kind of a perfect transition. Though even if you're used to larger motorcycles, there's still something fun about riding the Metacycle. This dude on a Harley is pretty excited about his too.
Yeah, I know. I'm in the second round.
Oh yeah?
I ordered a white one. I'm in the second round, which means I'll probably never see it, but still.
I'll get there eventually.
It's the first time I've seen one on the road.
It's pretty cool.
Have fun.
Thanks. So now I'm left with the dilemma. You see, the Saunders Metacycle is not the bike we were originally promised. It's a bit fatter and it's a bit slower than it was a couple years ago, though who among us isn't? And yeah, it's more expensive too. What started out a $5,000 motorcycle now costs $6,500. But you know what? I still think it's worth it, and here's why. There's just no other electric motorcycle that's highway capable and offers the specs that this bike does for this price. Sure, the Metacycle is going to have to compete with a whole crop of new electric motorcycles coming, bikes like the Rivet Anthem and the CSC RX-1E, but for now, the Metacycle still offers a surprisingly good ride, and it's blurring that line between electric bicycles, e-mopeds, and e-motorcycles. And hey, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you enjoyed that first ride on the Saunders Metacycle. If you did, why don't you give this video a thumbs up? And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our future electric vehicle videos. We'll see you here next time.